The day began with the golden dust of Mumbai floating through the air like memories refusing to settle. Film City was already alive before sunrise. Cables snaked across the ground, cameras blinked awake, and voices bounced between tin walls. Somewhere within that maze of light and noise stood a girl barely 19, whose laughter had already become a country's anthem. Divya Bharti adjusted the dupatta of her costume while the director yelled through a megaphone, calling for energy. Smile. Magic. She smiled as ordered, but something about the morning felt different. It wasn't nerves. It was the feeling that something unseen was about to touch the edges of her perfect world. In those years, she was unstoppable. 14 films in 2 years, headlines screaming Bollywood's child queen, critics comparing her to legends twice her age. But beneath all the applause, Divya carried something most stars lose early: curiosity. She wanted to know people. The spot boys, the drivers, the extras who came for lunch just to watch her dance. She said once to a journalist, "If I stop feeling for people, my face will forget how to smile." That day, the set was for a lavish song sequence, bright colors, hundreds of dancers, a set built like a palace. The music director tested the speakers, and the air vibrated with the first beats of tabla and sitar. But at the far edge of the compound, beyond the security fence, someone else had arrived. A man with all-stained hands and a frail girl wrapped in a scarf too big for her head. Her name was Asha. She was 7, though illness had made her look 5. Her father, a mechanic from Andheri, had borrowed money just to bring her here. The doctors had said words he couldn't bear to repeat, only that time was short. In her final days, Asha wanted one thing: to meet her favorite actress, the girl whose laughter filled her evenings when pain kept her awake. Divya Bharti. He tried writing letters to studios, waiting near red carpets, speaking to watchmen who promised to try. But nothing worked. Hope doesn't need logic, though, and that morning, he decided they would try one last time. The auto rickshaw stopped outside Film City. The guards at the gate shook their heads before he could even speak. "No fans inside," one of them said. "Shooting going on." "Just a glimpse," the father pleaded, voice breaking. "Please, she only wants to see her once." The guard softened, but rules were rules. The man nodded, defeated, and led Asha to sit on the curb near the gate. She leaned against his shoulder, watching the flashes of color through the open doors. Her tiny hand clutched the photograph of Divya she had torn from a magazine, edges worn from being held too often. Inside, the camera rolled. Divya twirled across the marble floor of the set, every movement a painting in motion. But something pulled her attention: a small cluster of people outside, movement beyond the lights. She frowned, missing a step. The director shouted, "Cut." "What happened, Divya?" She hesitated. "Someone's outside," she said softly, walking toward the open gate. The assistant tried to stop her. "Madam, it's just fans." But Divya didn't listen. She was already stepping down from the platform, the bells of her anklets echoing through the silence that followed. The entire set went still. From the gate, she saw them: the man, the little girl with the scarf, her skin pale as paper but eyes bright with something fierce. Hope, yes, but also love. Divya walked faster. The guard tried to explain. "She's been here since morning, madam. Says she only wants to see you." Divya knelt beside the child. "And what's your name, my darling?" "Asha," the girl whispered. Divya smiled. "That means hope. So you came to give us all some, didn't you?" The girl nodded, eyes glistening. "I just wanted to see you dance." The sentence landed on Divya's heart like a note from somewhere beyond the world of cameras. She turned back toward the director. "Stop the shoot," she said. He blinked. "We are in the middle of." "Stop it." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of kindness disguised as command. For a moment, nobody moved. Lights burned. The dancers froze mid-step. The assistant director held his clipboard like a shield. Then, Divya crossed the gate, bent down, and lifted the child's hand. "Come," she said. "Today, you are my guest." And just like that, Bollywood's busiest set paused for a 7-year-old girl with a dream. Inside the studio, confusion turned into awe. The young star who could command producers with a glance was now holding the hand of a frail little girl wrapped in a hospital scarf. Crew members parted like waves. Lights softened without anyone touching the dimmers. It felt as if the world itself had bent its rules for one quiet act of love. Divya led Asha to a chair near the cameras. "This is the best seat in the house," she said. A costume assistant rushed to fetch a shawl, draping it gently around the girl's shoulders. The music operator hovered by the console, waiting for orders. Divya turned to him. "Play the track again," she said. "But this time, we dance for her." The director, still in disbelief, gave a helpless nod. "Roll camera," he whispered. "If she wants magic, we'll film it." And the music began. Divya stepped onto the floor, barefoot now, bangles chiming softly. She looked at Asha and smiled. A real smile, not the practiced one rehearsed for publicity shots. Her eyes glimmered with something sacred, the kind of warmth that cameras could capture but never explain. The rhythm rose, tabla and sitar weaving through the air like heartbeat and breath. She twirled once, twice, then began to move with a freedom that startled everyone. It wasn't choreography anymore. It was prayer. Every turn of her wrist, every tilt of her head spoke to the little girl who sat watching in perfect stillness. Divya was not performing for fame or applause, she was trying to gift life through movement. The extras forgot their steps, entranced by what they saw. The lighting crew lowered their eyes. Even the director, known for his temper, felt tears prickling beneath his glasses. When the final beat fell, the room was silent, a silence too heavy for sound to break. Then came a single clap, small but echoing, Asha's. Her palms met once, twice, and then she smiled through her exhaustion. Divya walked toward her. Kneeling down, she took the girl's hands in hers. "You liked it. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Asha said, her voice trembling. "You dance like the wind is following you." Divya laughed softly. "Maybe it was. Maybe it followed you here first." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rest of the set blurred into insignificance, just two souls suspended in the same light. Then Asha whispered, "I want to be like you when I grow up." Divya's smile faltered slightly, as if the words carried a weight she could not bear. "Then you must promise me something," she said. "You must keep fighting, no matter what happens." The girl nodded solemnly. "And you must promise to keep smiling for everyone who can't." Divya pressed her forehead to Asha's. "That's a deal." The father, who had been standing silently at the edge, began to cry. He tried to thank her, but the words wouldn't come. Divya rose, walked to him, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Take her home," she said gently. "She's seen more than most of us ever will." The shoot was cancelled that day. Nobody complained. The producers could calculate losses, but not the kind of story they had just witnessed. The studio emptied slowly, as if unwilling to disturb the fragile peace left behind. Before Asha left, Divya slipped something into her palm, a small silver bracelet from her costume. "Keep this," she said. "Whenever you wear it, you're part of every film I'll ever make." Asha held it to her chest. "Then you'll never forget me." Divya shook her head. "Not even if the stars fall." That evening, when the crew wrapped equipment, the light man whispered to a grip, "Today?" Even the cameras cried. Word spread quietly through the industry. Divya stopped a whole film for a dying girl. No one knew the child's name, but everyone remembered her eyes. For the next few weeks, Divya visited Asha in the hospital. She came late at night, disguised in a simple kurta, carrying fruits, toys, and laughter. The nurses pretended not to recognize her. She would sit by the bed, brushing the girl's hair, listening to her talk about dreams, not of heaven, but of school picnics and mango ice cream. "Do you ever get tired of being famous?" Asha asked one night. Divya smiled. "Sometimes. But when people love you, it's not a burden. It's like carrying a light." Asha touched her hand. "Then don't ever let that light go out." Divya didn't know then how prophetic those words would sound. She stayed longer that night than usual, leaving only when the nurse insisted. As she stepped into the corridor, she heard a faint sound behind her. Asha's voice, half asleep, whispering the line from her favorite movie. "Some stars never fade, even when they fall. Divya stopped walking. The corridor lights flickered, humming softly above her. She looked back through the glass window at the small figure in the bed, hand clutching the bracelet, and something inside her shifted forever. That night, as she returned home through the empty Mumbai streets, the world felt both infinite and unbearably fragile. She didn't know it yet, but destiny had already tied their stories together, one child's last wish and one woman's final lesson in love. Days blurred into weeks. Mumbai's monsoon washed the city in silver, thunder rumbling over the skyline while Film City continued its endless churn of cameras and lights. Divya kept working. Premieres, photo shoots, late-night dubbing. Yet every spera found its way back to that small hospital room in Mahim. Asha's smile greeted her like sunrise. The nurses whispered that the actress brought color with her. Even the monitors seemed to beep softer when she was near. She would sit by the bed, untangling the girl's hair, humming old songs. Sometimes she read from scripts, letting Asha choose which lines she should deliver next. "See?" she'd laugh. "You're my secret director now." But between visits, Divya began to sense a shadow lengthening. The doctors stopped making promises. They spoke in cautious phrases about comfort and quality of life. Divya listened, nodded, and refused to believe them. She arranged a specialist, more medicine, even a private nurse, as if sheer will could outpace fate. One evening she arrived to find Asha asleep, breath shallow, bracelet still around her wrist. Divya sat quietly, watching the rise and fall of the child's chest. The room smelled of rain and antiseptic. In the faint reflection of the window, she saw herself, the famous face everyone adored, and wondered why all the fame in the world couldn't buy a single extra heartbeat. She stayed until dawn. When Asha woke, Divya smiled as if nothing was wrong. "Tell me, what should I dance to next time?" Asha thought for a moment. "Something about angels," she whispered. A few days later, during a film shoot in Pune, a nurse's call broke through the noise of the set. Divya walked away from the cameras to take it. The world on the other end of the line was very quiet. Asha had slipped away in her sleep. No one on set saw her cry. She simply removed her makeup, changed into a plain white salwar, and left without a word. At the hospital she stood by the small covered form, tears sliding soundlessly down her cheeks. She touched the child's hand one last time and whispered, "Keep dancing, my sister. The stage is all yours now." At the funeral she gave the parents an envelope, the rest of the hospital fees, and the bracelet, polished clean. "She asked me to keep it," Divya said, "but I think it belongs with her." The father bowed, unable to speak. Afterward, Divya wandered through the empty Mumbai streets in the rain. Neon lights reflected in puddles like broken halos. She thought of the thousands of faces that cheered her every day, and how the only one she wanted to see was gone. That night she opened her diary and wrote one sentence: "If love could stay, time would never move." Then she folded Asha's photograph inside the page and carried it with her everywhere: premieres, interviews, rehearsals. Friends noticed something had changed. Her laughter was softer now, her eyes distant between takes. On set she told a co-actor, "Sometimes I feel she's still watching, just behind the lights." The man smiled politely, but Divya wasn't joking. Strange coincidences began to follow. Asha's favorite song played unexpectedly on radios wherever she went. During one shoot, a white butterfly circled her for hours until the final take ended. She laughed, saying, "Maybe she just wants one more dance." But when she said it, her eyes shimmered with something deeper: fear, perhaps, or faith. One evening she returned to her flat and placed the photograph on her bedside table. In it, Asha's smile seemed alive under the dim lamp. "I kept my promise," Divya whispered. "Now you keep yours. Watch over me." She fell asleep to the hum of traffic outside, unaware that her own story was winding toward its final scene. April 1993 arrived with the restless heat of early summer. Mumbai buzzed with energy. New film launches, music releases, gossip headlines. Divya Bharti's face smiled from every poster across the city. She was everywhere, yet nowhere seemed to hold her. Those closest to her said she had changed in subtle ways. She spent evenings by her balcony, staring at the city lights as if they were stars she had once known. She still laughed easily, but sometimes in the middle of a conversation she'd go silent, eyes distant, as though listening to a voice no one else could hear. Her mother once asked, "Are you all right, Beta?" Divya had only smiled. "I'm fine, Mama. Just thinking about a little girl who made me promise too much." On the night of 5th April, she was at home, a modest flat in Tulsi Apartments, Warsaw. Friends were visiting, laughing, planning her next shoot. Her husband, producer Sajid Nadiadwala, was out of town. There was music, drinks, and the usual chatter of young people who believe life will always wait for them. Divya moved to the balcony to feel the night air. The city below shimmered. She turned to say something, a joke, maybe, and in that instant, the laughter inside froze into silence. A crash. A scream. Then nothing. The reports that followed would contradict each other endlessly. An accident, a slip, something darker. The newspapers feasted on mystery. The fans mourned in disbelief. She was 19, radiant, unstoppable, and gone. The funeral drew thousands. The streets overflowed with people holding flowers and photographs. Some wept openly, others stood in stunned silence. Among the garlands and candles, someone placed a child's drawing, a small figure in a yellow dress twirling under stars. Beneath it, in shaky handwriting, were 3 words, "Dance again, Didi." When her belongings were returned to her family, they found her diary. Folded between pages of film notes was a single photograph of a smiling girl with a scarf too big for her head. On the back, in Divya's handwriting, were the words, "For my little sister Asha, you reminded me why I dance." The page smelled faintly of jasmine and rain. In the months that followed, strange stories spread quietly through the industry. A lightman swore that during a night shoot on the same stage, a gust of wind blew through the closed set just as the director shouted, "Action." The lights flickered, and the playback machine started on its own, the same song Divya had once danced to for the little girl. A camera assistant found a single silver bangle lying near the studio gate the next morning. No one claimed it. They left it there, as if the ground itself had earned it. People said it was coincidence. But for those who had been there that first day, who had seen the way Divya had stopped an entire production for a child, it felt like something more, a message that kindness never really dies. Years passed. Bollywood moved on, as it always does, building new stars and stories. But every year, around April, someone would place fresh marigolds near that old gate in Film City. No one ever saw who did it. The director of that long-ago shoot was once asked in an interview what he remembered most about Divya. He didn't mention her beauty or her talent. He said, "There are moments when you see someone become more than human, when light seems to listen to them." That day, she stopped fame, time, and gravity. She stopped the world to make a dying girl smile. Tell me, how many of us could ever do that? In the end, her story became legend. A haunting melody that still plays when her old songs appear on TV, when the rain falls over Mumbai, when a young actress looks at the stars and wonders if kindness can change destiny. They say that when a true artist gives their heart away, the universe takes notice. Maybe that's why some people leave early, because their purpose was never to stay, but to remind the rest of us how beautiful being human can be. And if you ever walk through Film City at dusk, past the gates where the crowds gather and the lights begin to fade, you might hear faint laughter carried by the wind, a child's giggle, followed by the whisper of anklets. Some say it's the echo of Divya Bharti, still dancing under unseen stars. Others believe it's Asha, clapping softly in heaven, keeping her promise forever. But maybe, just maybe, it's both. Two souls bound by one moment of compassion, still meeting where the light never dies. In the days that followed her death, Mumbai refused to believe what it had seen. Newspapers printed different versions of the same tragedy. Television anchors repeated her name until it became more echo than word. The film industry, so quick to chase the next story, stood still. The girl who had made time pause for a dying child had now vanished from it. Police arrived at her apartment, notebooks open, voices low. Neighbors argued over what they had heard. Laughter, glass breaking, a cry, or perhaps only the sound of the city exhaling. The investigators photographed the balcony, the spilled drink, the broken bangles scattered like frozen rain. They asked questions no one could answer. Was she happy? Did she fight with anyone? Had she been drinking? Her mother, wrapped in white, only said, she was pure-hearted. Maybe that is too dangerous a thing to be in this world. The newspapers called it an accident. Others whispered darker theories, jealousy, betrayal, secrets between fame and love. But those who knew her best spoke of something simpler, exhaustion. The kind of tiredness that comes from carrying too many hearts at once. At the studio, the crew from her last film refused to pack the set. The director walked through the empty palace backdrop where she had once danced and said quietly, "It still smells of her perfume." For days, no one could bring themselves to take down the lights. Then something strange happened. When they finally powered off the equipment, one light remained on, the same spotlight that had shone on Divya during the dance for Asha. Electricians checked the circuits, everything was disconnected. Still, the bulb glowed faintly, as if remembering. Word spread, and soon people began visiting the studio as though it were a shrine. They left flowers at the door, photos of Divya, and small notes that read, "Thank you for reminding us to feel." Her co-stars gathered for a memorial service. One of them, a quiet actor known for never showing emotion, broke down mid-speech. "We thought she was just a star," he said, voice trembling. "But she was a mirror. She showed us what we had lost, kindness." Outside, fans lit candles along the street. Among them stood an old man holding a framed photo of a child with a scarf. No one recognized him, but when asked, he smiled sadly and said, "She made my daughter believe in miracles." The reporters wrote that as gossip. But some who heard him believed it was Asha's father, returning to honor the girl who had once danced for his child, and who perhaps had gone to meet her. Late that night, when the crowd dispersed, rain began to fall. Heavy, relentless, almost cleansing. The last candle flickered, refused to die, and burned until dawn. In those days, Bollywood spoke in hushed tones, afraid of its own ghosts. But for every whisper of mystery, there was one of reverence. Divya Bharti had become more than a tragedy. She was a symbol, a question, a haunting melody that refused to end. And somewhere, deep in Film City, the sound engineers swore they could still hear, faintly, under old recordings of her songs, the rhythm of anklets, distant, steady, like a promise kept across worlds. Years passed, but in India, time never truly moves on. It circles back, especially for those who left too soon. Divya Bharti became more than memory. She became myth. Every few years, a new generation would discover her films, the laughter, the innocence, the spark that seemed to belong to another realm. Young actresses would mimic her expressions, directors spoke of her timing like a lost art. But what none of them could copy was the strange tenderness that lingered behind her eyes. In Film City, the set where she had danced for Asha was eventually dismantled. The marble floor was replaced, the walls repainted. Yet, something about that corner of the studio always felt different. Sound technicians said the acoustics there were strange, the echoes softer, as if cushioned by memory. Cameramen joked that whenever a light flickered unexpectedly, it meant Divya's checking the frame. It became an open secret, a quiet superstition shared among crews. Before starting a shoot, someone would whisper, "For the little girl, and for Divya." No one really knew why it comforted them, but it did. A decade later, a young dancer named Meera got her first big break on the very same stage. She was nervous, her knees trembling as she faced the camera for the first time. During rehearsal, the power cut out. Panic spread through the crew. Meera stood frozen in the dark, until a faint smell of jasmine brushed the air, delicate, familiar, impossible. The lights returned. In that instant, the director swore he saw something impossible on the playback monitor. A second silhouette beside the girl, spinning gracefully before vanishing with the flash. He never mentioned it publicly, but in interviews years later, he said, "That day, the air itself taught my actress how to move." Meanwhile, across India, people still left flowers near the Film City gate every April. Some came alone, others with children. Many didn't even know who started the tradition. They only knew it felt right, to honor a life that had turned fame into compassion. Among those who came was a man with silver hair and kind eyes. He never gave his name, But every year he placed a small silver bracelet by the flowers and whispered a single prayer in Hindi. For my daughters, both of them. In 2003, a journalist writing an article about Bollywood legends tracked him down. He was, indeed, Asha's father. He lived quietly in a suburb near Thane, fixing engines, his hands still stained with grease. When asked about that day in Film City, he smiled through tears. She didn't just dance for my child, he said. She showed the whole world what it means to be human. Some people act for a living. She lived like an act of grace. The journalist asked him if he believed in the stories, the lights that flickered, the scents of jasmine, the whispers in the studio. He nodded slowly. When you've seen real kindness, he said, you stop worrying about proof. He passed away a few years later, peacefully. In his small home, they found two photographs on the same shelf, one of Asha smiling with the silver bracelet, the other of Divya Bharti laughing on set. A garland of dried marigolds connected them. Back in the city, the legend only grew. Directors said strange things happened when her old film reels were restored, brief flashes of her looking directly into the camera, even in scenes where the shot didn't call for it. As if she were breaking the frame to remind everyone, I'm still here. Music composers spoke of hearing faint humming between takes of old recordings. One of them swore he recognized the voice, light, teasing, unmistakably hers. It was like she was singing just behind me, he said, and when I turned, only silence. But the truest sign of her presence wasn't in the studios or the screens, it was in the people. A young nurse in Mahim started a charity for terminally ill children called the Asha Trust, inspired by the story she'd heard as a girl. A film school in Pune introduced an award named the Divya Bharti Human Spirit Prize, given not for acting but for kindness on set. And in countless homes, mothers told their daughters, if you ever become famous, be like her. Remember those who can't reach the gate. On the 30th anniversary of her passing, the rain fell again over Mumbai, just as it had that night in 1993. The streets glistened. People gathered near the sea, lighting candles that floated like small souls across the water. Someone played her song from Deewana on a speaker, and voices joined softly, as if the city itself was singing her home. In the distance, a little girl, maybe 7, maybe an echo, twirled barefoot in the puddles, laughter ringing through the night. A few onlookers swore they saw another figure beside her, dancing with the same graceful joy. When lightning flashed, both vanished. Maybe it was imagination. Maybe it was faith. Or maybe love had simply kept its promise. Because some stories don't end. They dissolve into the air we breathe, the music we hear, the hearts we carry. And somewhere, in a place beyond cameras and scripts, a 7-year-old girl is clapping again while a 19-year-old star laughs beside her. The lights dim. The curtain falls. But the stage keeps glowing. And in that eternal glow, Divya Bharti dances still.